Hi, friends. Hello, the world. Welcome to this episode of Tools for Transitioning Humanitarians. I'm your host, Solar Manova, and I hope you can hear me. I'm using my husband's computer, so because mine is crashed, so that's why I hope it's still accessible. So, the topic that I wanted to share today is a topic of values versus feelings and why we need to differentiate it and why it matters. And I would love for you to really think about um, how and why it would matter for you. And here is the reason why I want to talk about this is because I have seen a lot of humanitarians when they want to transition from where they are to where they want to be. Oftentimes, they want to do that because of wanting to get away from certain feelings, certain toxic environments, certain bosses, right? And in those moments, it's so easy for us to do things out of wanting to just get away from that place. And if we are burnout and if we feel like we can't really take care of ourselves, then it absolutely makes sense and we should do that. But if it's not the case and we're just trying to or believing that we're going to feel a lot better and a lot different somewhere else, there will be other challenges that come up. There will be other personalities like that. And therefore, if we make decisions out of uh, not wanting to experience certain feelings, right? Then it becomes like we just continue chasing after feeling satisfied or uh, feeling good or feeling liked by other people and not really addressing those issues of why are we not standing up for ourselves in front of these people. Why are we not trying to solve things around us in that toxic environment, at least some of the things that are possible within control? And that's where the values come in and they might be very useful to follow versus feelings, right? So if the value was that I want to be authentic or I want to be someone who stands up by myself, for myself, if that was a value that we valued in our lives, then no matter how disappointed or how frustrating it would be, we would always want to solve this, or we would always want to stand up for ourselves, and we would be showing up as authentic as possible because that matters to us, right? So you can see that values are so much more stable characteristics or qualities that we really value and or we want to aspire to, we want to embody, while the feelings are temporary vibrations that we have in reaction to certain things around us or in reaction to our own thought processes. And therefore, we often tend to want to avoid certain feelings and we want to just get away or suppress and do nothing about them, and therefore we tend to be then in roller coasters of getting away from the place that we don't like and going to another place and then feeling like it's even worse place, and then it just becomes like lots of ups and downs that are very difficult to handle, right? So that's why if we had followed the values of what is it that really is important in this environment and how do I want to make sure that I actually stick to my values, whatever they are, then it would be a lot more stable way of handling situations, right? So that would be one of the main reasons that I wanted to talk about values versus feelings and how we may confuse them sometimes, and or maybe not even think about them because we haven't really thought about what are our values and how those values play up in all parts of our lives, right? So I want to give you another example that's maybe even more illustrative of what I'm talking about. And this example is my example that I have experienced so many times when I was younger. It's in the dating scene, right? So in the dating scene, this is how I would usually show up in the dating scene of, let's say that I liked someone and let's say that we went on a date, right? And then I would so much focus on my what the feelings I'm having in those moments, right? The feeling of being desirable, feeling of being liked, feeling of flirtation, or all the feelings that come from flirtation, they would be so overwhelming or so impactful that I wouldn't really look at, is this really the person that I want to build a relationship? Is this the person who has similar values to mine, right? Which is, in my case, my values that have been very present all of my life is deep trust, freedom, respect, partnership, right? Is this person really able to do that or has those values? And do I really see indications of that? I wouldn't really look at them, right? I would just be so rushed from my all the feelings that I have in part experienced through dating this person, but most of the time I have invented or even like created a lot more bubbles of how this is the greatest person I know. This is like a connection from first sight or love from first sight. We're just gonna end up getting together and being together. And I would just create and invent lots of stories around how this is the person that is not even true because I haven't yet experienced. After the first date, I may have already have all of this, right? And therefore, I am willing to continue chasing my feelings and keep going on this date with this person with my own inflated version of how great this person is without actually talking to that person, and forgetting all about my values of being so free and doing whatever I want in life while being in partnership, right? And not really thinking about that, not really thinking that if that person aligns with me in that sense, right? And then one day it happened so that I experienced a similar thing. I dated this person from my country, and this was the first ever date with someone from my country. And I just went on, and I had all this clouds, and I was on the seventh cloud kind of thing. And I was just chasing all of my feelings of this, feeling desirable and feeling loved and feeling admired and all of this, right? And then to realize that he had his plans of living in a village, in his village, and he had his plan of him wanting to live with me on in his village. And I never wanted to live in the village. It's never been my aspiration in life, and I have never really thought about even this. And then this is when it hit me that while I was chasing all of my feelings of how great he is and all the things, to the point that he proposed to me, and when I realized no, I'm going too rushed into too many things. I need to slow down and I need to really understand who is this person. Do we really have all the things in common that we want in life? And if not, then this is going to end bad, right? And that's when I stop. And you can see from this example as how the values and the feelings play out together, right? If I keep just chasing after those rush feelings, and avoiding or not looking at all the ways of how my values align with his values, if I'm not really looking at that, then it will crush and burn very soon. And that's why I think it's one of the great examples like these that show us that even though in the moment we may feel amazing, we may feel excitement, it's a bit like when we are going and choosing or getting a new assignment, right? It's so exciting to go to a new country, to a new context, to learn about the context, getting to know the colleagues, getting to know the environment, getting to know all of these things, even though back in our mind, if this was not really the duty station that we really wanted or it aligned with our values, then in our back of our mind are thinking, oh no, I hope this will go well because I just went for it because this was the first thing that was available and they offered me, and I got so excited that I couldn't contain my excitement, and then I went for it, even though that's not really aligned with what do I want to do and how I want my career progress and what responsibilities I want to take up, right? So therefore, you can see that value system is the values that we inherently value or appreciate, or that we put so much value into it, meaning that that is so important to us, versus the temporary vibrations of feelings that we tend to have in the moment, and our reactive brain gets so excited or so pumped up with all of these feelings that wants to drive us to that thing, even though if we looked at from the value lens, maybe this is not what we would have chosen or went for, right? But we did it anyway. So now that I have given you, I think, three examples of how values and feelings play out, here is another thing that I thought it would be important for me to share about the values as to how we could use them as a lens, as a perspective to say, okay, do I really want to do this? Do I really want it, or is this really my person? Excuse me, right? If we're talking about relationship, or if we're talking about new jurisdiction, or maybe we're transitioning to totally different sector, how can we really use, excuse me, our value lens instead of our emotion lens? Because emotion lens could be something like, oh, I'm very excited, this would be so good for me, I would meet so many new people and all of this, and those are amazing feelings that may inform us as to whether we want this or not. But also, let's put the value lens or value hat, if you would like to, whichever the way that resonates with you, and then look at, okay, this place that I'm going to, is that really going to challenge me in the way that I want to grow in my career, right? If career growth is important to us, or is it going to be stable for me? If the stability is a value that we really appreciate, then is it going to be a stable place where I can then get off work on time so that I can do other things? Or is this going to be the place where I want to settle? If settling is a value that's important to you, then is this a place that I can settle, or I feel, or I see myself settling, and therefore I want to do this, right? So when you start looking at the value lens, it becomes not so much more the rush and adrenaline or whatever the excitement feelings, or opposite, which is the frustration and disappointment and let me get away from it, but rather it allows us to have more mature conversation with ourselves, where we don't really make decisions out of hyped up place, right? But we're making decision out of very grounded and mature or peaceful place, and saying, okay, from now on, moving forward, what's important to my life is that let's say that I um, I want to settle, I want to have the feeling of settling, or I want to have the feeling of contributing in this way, in this impact. I want to have what I value now is the stability, or what I value now is the relationships and connections, or what I value now is working with leaders whose work I can admire and learn from, and go in that direction instead of keep just surviving from one thing to another, right? So you can see that when we start having conversation with the value lens, then things become so much more, okay, what is it that is important to us? What is it that we really value nowadays? Maybe at some point in our lives in the past, we used to value adventure, right? And that's a very great thing, and we have done it. But now maybe adventure is not really on the like top on the list. It doesn't mean that it can't be on the list, right? But maybe it's not top on the list. So one of my values, so I have thought about my values often, and one of the values that I really value is freedom. And I have talked about this in one of the posts recently where I have really looked at, okay, freedom from constraints of creating my impact, but I want to create impact freely in the way that I think is best to create that impact with other people who want to do that too, right? And then as soon as I realized about this part of my life where I want to create impact and I want to do that with so much freedom, then I started thinking about, okay, how much of this freedom I really value in other parts of my life. And then I have realized that I actually value freedom in so many other things. Where do I live? Where do I travel? Freedom from survival, freedom from constraints of circumstances externally, meaning that I don't want my external circumstances of what I have now limit me in what I can and cannot do in life. And I also started seeing that I want to be free in how I manage my time, how I do my work, how I spend my time in general, right? I want to be free from all the toxicity and complaints and blames. I want to be free from inner judgments, inner oppressions, and all of these things. And you can see that as soon as I start having or putting the value lens, I start seeing where I am really craving for that value in all parts of my life, right? It's not only in this place, and even though it may start as it's important to me in this work environment, but it can start also feeling like in other parts of my life. So another values that I thought it was important or interesting that we were discussing yesterday in my group coaching for BIG Transitioning for Humanitarians. And if you haven't joined, absolutely you should join it. So in this group coaching, what we were discussing yesterday is one of my clients was saying that I no longer want to be the person who's chasing after job and chasing making 1,000 applications and hoping for the best, or having existential crisis every time I don't get the job I want. I want to be independent, and I want to do this job where other clients come to me now that I want to transition, right? And she was saying that so she wasn't saying my value, but the way that I understood from that conversation is her value is no longer chasing, but bringing or attracting, or whichever the way, people to your own space and working with those people. And that's really what she's valuing nowadays, right? She's saying that I no longer want to keep chasing after and chasing after. And that's, I think, is a beautiful way of seeing also how maybe our value in the past has been that we just need to go from one thing to the next thing, or I just need to go and do like 1,000 different things so that I can get the next thing. So, which would be a very fear-based way of acting, right? Instead, acting, valuing trust and saying, okay, I trust myself and my experience, and I will let people come to me and work with me. And that's what's important to me going forward. And that's what's important in the quality of my life going forward, right? So you can see that values may be expressed in so many different ways, even though we may not say it. But what we will understand is that we are craving for it, right? If we really start listening inwards, we start seeing how much we're craving for independence or freedom or trust. Or groundedness, inner peace, stability, whatever it is that we're craving, we start seeing them and they start coming and emerging. And those are the things that we are valuing currently, and therefore we want them to then guide us to how we want to do things, in how we want to create our next chapter, versus trying to keep reacting to the emotions and trying to suppress or avoid and keep struggling with it, and then making decision in the midst of it that may not really serve us well. Okay, my dears, I think I have given you a lot of examples of why and how um, the the values versus feelings, how to differentiate and why to differentiate is important, and then how you can use the value lens to move forward to what you want to do in life or the next chapter of your transitioning. And if you need help with this, absolutely come over. I would love to coach you on this or any topic that I cover. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful week. Bye.